This is the Persistence of Vision podcast.
So this month on the podcast, I'm talking with Mitchell Cole, who I met at the Magnolia Film Festival. He's a writer, director, an actor. He's got a few short film credits under his belt for both acting, both writing, directing, and is now written and directed and acted in his first feature film, Against the Spread. Mitchell, it's great to see you again. When we first met, we were at the Magnolia Film Festival.
Yes,
where
Magnolia
you were screening your feature film, Against the Spread. So we're recording this in June. This happened back in February of 25, so it's been a few months, but I'm so glad we get the chance to reconnect.
A lot hotter than it was when we met. I remember I was like triple layered up. It was cold. It was really cold. And
well, yeah, I'm from Alabama originally. I know you're from the Panhandle, so I mean we're not used to the cold too much.
Not at all. Not at all. I think it was down in the 20s if I'm not mistaken. It was like freezing.
Yeah.
And now we're like mid 90s where I'm at.
Yeah, so are you still in Florida right now?
I am in Florida. Yes.
If you were to meet somebody at a film festival or in a professional setting, how might you introduce yourself to somebody?
I'd say, hey, how's it going? I'm Mitchell Cole. And then I would say been working in film for, I think coming up on 6 or 7 years now. 6 or 7 years. Started out as like an actor in short films, student films, and wasn't having a lot of success with that. Wasn't getting a lot of roles. So I started writing my own roles and making my own projects and realized, that was more my speed than that whole acting thing. So fell in love with that, made quite a few shorts, did the film festival circuit, and ended up just in 2023, October of 2023, shot my first feature film. And that's where I'm at, trying to get the next one made.
So you're a writer and director now. Your first love, it sounds like, was in acting. Is that right?
Yeah, well, that's how it started. Yeah, I think I've always wanted to be a director, just probably didn't understand at a young age what a director did. But the more I've learned about film was like, yeah, no, that's more like what I want to do.
So Mitchell, just take us back a little bit, kind of where your passion for filmmaking all got started for you and where you kind of, decided that this is the path you wanted to take.
Yeah, you mean like from the very beginning or like from the beginning of like when I said I'm going to do it?
Yeah, I think we can skip over the part where you were born when
on.
you and we can kind of fast forward to when you knew that filmmaking was the thing for you.
Okay. Well, just like to give some context, like the whole filmmaking thing kind of started in middle school with my buddies. It was when YouTube was first becoming a thing. Nobody really knew what to use it for. And so we'd shoot our shorts and put it on there and kind of veered away from it. I got into the blue collar field when I turned 18 and really did that for quite a few years. And always knew, I felt unfulfilled. Because I never felt like I gave film a fair chance. And so when I was like 25 or 26, I was like, you know what? I'm going to, give it an actual shot. And so I got on like Backstage, made a profile and started doing free films. Is it like the student projects everybody does when they first start, that aren't paid? I was going down to like South Florida area and doing a lot with like the Ringling College down there. Other than that, wasn't getting a lot, you know what I mean? Not a lot of short film roles. And I was applying for a lot, auditioning for a lot, just wasn't landing anything. So I was like, well, we did this back in middle school. Let's just try this again. So I got it with my old buddies. And luckily one of them, Wesley, was like, yeah, well, that sounds fun. Let's try that. So we started doing the short films and started getting to where we knew what we were doing. And I was like, okay, hey, this could actually work. This is better than trying to audition for somebody else's movie. We'll just write and make the movies we want to make. And then if we can't find actors, I'll just act in them. Right. And we played our shorts at a few festivals, networked, and, was able to build a crew and get financing to make a feature film. That's where we're at now. Finished the feature film and looking to make another one. We're hooked.
Yeah, so early on when you're just kind of playing around, figuring things out in the early days of YouTube, I think everybody that has done this kind of has a similar backstory. I was the same way. I was playing with my dad's VHS camcorder, getting friends from down the street. But in the early days of YouTube, when you're kind of figuring out where were you going in order to seek out information, tutorials on how to do it, how to make it, or are you just kind of figuring things out on your own, kind of just a little bit of a DIY?
Well, in middle school, I mean, I don't think we took it too serious. It was just kind of what we did on the weekend, right? So we were just kind of experimenting with the film. And, sometimes you watch some, like you watch your project and you're like, that one shot was really good, compared to all the other stuff. You didn't know why, but you're just like, oh, that looks cool. But so far as I think what you're asking is, basically how do you learn how to do all this crap without going to film school, right? Yeah, YouTube tutorials. So once I was like 25, 26, kind of getting into it, um, again, we went back to just shooting in the backyard. And it was like, man, this ain't gonna cut it. You know what I mean? I don't know why it's not cutting it, but I got to figure it out. And yeah, man. So you start. I'm sure you watched if you get on YouTube, D for Darius, and that was like the biggest one. And then there's like Film Riot and a couple other guys, but those are the biggest ones. And that's where I was able to get a really good understanding of camera language more than anything. You know what I mean?
That's kind of why I want to interview you and other people like yourself. There's a grit and a grind and about what we're doing. I mean, I hear all these success stories about people that are making it making it in film. They have really successful careers, and it's easy. Sometimes it can be discouraging to listen to those success stories because where you're sitting, you're thinking to yourself, man, I wish I was here. I wish I was there. Why isn't it working for me? Why are these people getting the accolades? And I think this podcast is a chance to talk to people that are still kind of figuring it out in a way, that have had some experiences. Maybe they had a few little successes, but they're still on the journey. So it's kind of a chance for a listener to come across this podcast and say, oh man, yeah, I can identify with these guys. I can identify with what they're going through. So I think that's important that we do take the time to hear from those that are still kind of in the thick of it, and trying to make things happen for themselves. So when I was prepping for our conversation, I was looking at a Tallahassee newspaper article about you when your short film Derelict was making the festival rounds. You had won an award, and there was a quote that you had mentioned in that article that popped out at me that I really can identify with. And you said that you're lucky if your mom says good job. And I don't know, and I think like I often. And I loved that quote because I often say that to people when I'm talking about the stuff that I'm posting online, whether it's this podcast or an article I'm writing. It's like, well, I know that my mom, I've got 100% satisfaction rate from my mom. She's out there, and I love that because I'm just wondering. I wonder if you could kind of elaborate on your mentality when you mentioned that about how you approach this pursuit.
Well, you know what's funny is that article is probably from like 4 years ago or something like that, and ain't a lot changed. you know, um, oh yeah, I thought it'd be way less relatable by now, but no, that's kind of funny. So I guess what I meant by that was, especially back then. So like now it's a little bit different, but it's still the same. Back then, we make a short film and we run it through the festival circuit, which that was our first festival run on that film. But we didn't really know what to do with the film when we finished it, right? Like you got these festivals, but before that we had made films that were too long. So it's like, well, we'll just put them on YouTube. But then you put them on YouTube and it's like, you think, okay, well, you never know what could happen, man. One person could see this and it's like, oh man, the floodgates are going to open. Like, producers might reach out once they know what we can do with nothing. And no, that's not like you like talking about it to somebody, one of your friends or something, just about the behind the scenes and the process. And And you're like, well, what do you think? Do you think we did all right? And they're like, oh man, I haven't been able to see it. I've been meaning to. I haven't been able to see it. They're like, oh shit. Okay, like, okay, my friends aren't even watching it. Who's watching this? You know what I mean? And that's where old moms comes in. Hey mom, I know you'll sit down in the living room and watch it with me. So, um, but yeah, I think what you should take from that, well, at least what I take from that is, you can't depend on other people for support all the time. You know what I mean? You got to have that, not even the motivation. You got to have the discipline to just know that's just part of it. And just, if you just keep making the films, eventually, you'll get somewhere. You might not get much farther, but you'll get somewhere if you just keep doing it.
By and large, is your mom a pretty positive, supportive person?
Yeah, yeah. She never tells me when they're bad. Yeah.
Yeah, you can always count. It's great to be able to count on mom when things don't go quite as you had planned. Where at least there's mom that can say, "Hey, because it's great. I loved it." I know that my mom has watched everything that I've ever done. And, there are moments when I didn't get the award, or I didn't get into that festival that I had my heart set on, or I'm questioning, why am I doing this? No one cares. No one's watching. And, she's always there to say, oh, you never know. It's just, all it takes is one person to see it. You just got to be patient. And of course, I appreciate the positivity. I appreciate the support. Sometimes I roll my eyes a little bit and think to myself, well, if it hasn't happened by now for me, it's my window of opportunity is past. But I just love that quote because I could really identify with that.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, yeah. By the way, your last short was, I haven't seen your other work. That last short, man, the one that played at Magnolia, that was hilarious and was funny. You talk about your mom, the mom character in that short was just absolutely fantastic, man. What did your mom
Yes.
think about? Did she think you had maybe drawn any influence from her for that character or what?
Well, I tell you this, the opening scene where my main character, the middle-aged son Robert, has come to his mom's house, and they walk into the house together, and they're just kind of chit-chatting. And Robert, the son, opens the scene and says, "Well, I ran into Glenn down at the gas station the other day, or to this afternoon." And that whole conversation in the kitchen was lifted almost verbatim from an incident, two separate incidents that my parents actually um, experienced. So they got a really big kick out of me putting a little bit of their experiences in the script. And I think there's a lot and that's what I wanted to talk to you about, because I know that you being from Florida, you draw on a lot of your own kind of regional, because like Against the Spread,
Yeah.
you being from the Panhandle, I mean, it's set in the Panhandle. I
Yeah.
mean, you're obviously drawing from your own world that you know. So tell me about that.
Oh, well, I mean, just like with your project, man, it's like there are some characters in the South, man. Like you won't find people like that anywhere else. You know what I mean? And a lot of them are hilarious, man. So if you can really tap into that, that like funny without even trying to be funny, just who the character is and how they talk and the way they react. You know what I mean? Oh my gosh, there's just so much potential with that. Um, and at least for me, like I helped my buddy back in like 2019. I helped him move to he moved to Phoenix. So we got in a U-Haul in the Panhandle on I-10 and went all the way to Phoenix. And we're like, hey, we're out here. We're going to make a trip out of it. Let's, you're trying to get into film and stuff. Let's go check out Hollywood and LA and all that. So we got out there and man, I was just like looking around and I felt like I was on an alien planet. You know what I mean? I was like, I see all these things that have been in film, but now it's like in a different perspective almost. And it's like, I kind of understand the scale. That's the key word here, scale of what, the director was trying to do in whatever film it was, that I watched, whatever blockbuster film that's set in LA. But, when I realized that, I was just like, this is so foreign to me. I could never write a film about LA, you know what I mean? Because I had no idea what it's like to live there. And I was like, you know what though? I know really well. I know better than anyone else what it's like to live in the Panhandle, right? Because I've been there my whole life. And I was like, nobody's making film about the Panhandle. And the number one advice you ever get as a filmmaker from other filmmakers is make something authentic. So it just made total sense. I was like, dude, I'm just only going to write films for the next 5 years of my life that are set in the Panhandle, or at least the South. Don't worry about like what you think would be good or what you think would do well. Write honesty.
I want all the listeners that tune into this podcast episode to check out Against the Spread, your film, wherever they get the opportunity to do so, because it really stayed with me after I saw it at Magnolia Film Festival, because of what you're saying, the because the characters are grounded, they're quirky, they're fun. You can laugh at them, but you also want to kind of wring their neck a little bit because they're making such bad choices throughout the film, and they're just digging a hole deeper. So there's just kind of this great, just a great well-roundedness about Against the Spread, about the story, about the characters, where you can kind of cheer for the characters, but then you can also kind of root against them from time to time. And it just makes everybody feel a lot more real. So I would definitely recommend people check your film out, because I thought it was really great.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
So just quickly tell people how they can watch the film.
Oh, you can watch it streaming, digital, or, if you're old school like me and you like physical media, you can get a DVD or Blu-ray copy. Just, find it through, Jackrabbit Media is our distributor. So check out their website or Amazon or wherever you get your physical media.
Have there been any mentors that have kind of popped into your life here and there that you've kind of leaned on to kind of help you to get advice from as you've continued to grow?
Yeah, that's a really good question, man. Mentors. Oh God. I would definitely say Thomas Rondinella, of course.
And Tom was the producer for Against the Spread.
Yes, yeah. Tom was producer on Against the Spread. He's been really great in my career. Yeah, I met him when I was doing the short film festival run, and didn't contact him until I was ready to do the feature. And since then, him and I have just I've learned so much from the guy. I mean, he went to NYU back in the '80s. He's been doing film since the '80s. He's done editing, sound editing, and now he's just kind of fell into, or he's actually directed feature films himself, but he's fell into more of just he likes to produce. That's what he likes to do. He likes to be the machine, the spearhead on these projects, and especially from a producer standpoint, but also as like from a film industry professional perspective, he's been fantastic, man. I've just learned so much from him, man. Just like how to navigate these conversations with other people, or like when you're going to go pitch something, or when you send an email and you're waiting and you want to follow up, and you don't need to follow up just yet. You need just be patient. Just be patient. It's going to be fine. Going to be fine.
And you guys, when I first met you guys at Magnolia Film Festival, at first you guys seemed kind of like an unlikely pairing, because
Is it the age gap?
be, because of where he comes from, because of where you come from. There's that geographical background. There's that geographical difference. There's that age difference,
Yeah.
but it worked. It worked for you guys. So just maybe what were some of the biggest lessons you kind of learned from him navigating this whole process of making a feature?
Tom is probably the most thorough person I've ever met. That's the only reason that we got this film made, was because he pays attention to every detail, from pre-production until we've got it in the can. So that, like there was terminology and things I never heard of. I didn't even know. This is my first feature. I've never been on a actual film set, man. Like I didn't know anything. You know what I mean? All my sets I was on were my sets, like I was like, I don't think this is how it runs, but it works. But just being with Tom and spending time with him in pre-production and just learning like the proper way, that industry professionals do certain things and plan for things, and how to set yourself up for success, so that if something goes wrong, you kind of have a plan B and a plan C behind your plan. Is I mean, he's like fantastic. I can't like I can't explain how good he is at that. That's why I really like working with him.
Yeah. So when you guys first met, you were on at a festival with one of your short films.
Mhm.
So give me some background on how you guys met at the festival and how that partnership kind of clicked for the both of you guys as you were pitching against the spread or thinking about it or kind of getting that off the ground.
Well, first of all, I'll just tell you my first impression of Tom, I knew I was going to like this guy. We got it was an Orlando Film Fest, like 2021, I think. And didn't know who he was, but we're sitting on the same row and we're watching the opening night film. And I hear him like, just like scoffing. And I'm like, I whispered because Wesley, he was at the festival with me. I was like, "What's that guy's deal?" And he's like, "I don't know." So then the film finishes, and he's like, "Yeah, that film was set in New Jersey, and apparently, there's a scene where this girl is like pumping her gas, and she gets kidnapped by the bad guy at the gas pump." And Wesley's like, "Yeah, that guy said he lives in New Jersey, and like you're not allowed to pump your own gas." So like, like it's like he was like over the film after that scene. I was like, I love this guy. Um, but anyways, the next day, our film played in the block, and I was surprised, man. He like comes up to us after, and he's like, "I really like that. What are your plans for? Are you planning on doing a feature?" And we're like, "No, not really. This is kind of like a one-off short film, whatever type thing." I got his business card, and I was like, when I get ready to do something, this guy knows his stuff. He was telling us about all the films he had worked on, so I was like, I'm definitely going to consult with him. The time rolled around where we were getting ready to where I knew we were about to start pre-production. We had the script kind of at a good point. And so I was like, I'm going to reach out to this guy. So I can't remember if I think I just texted him. I don't think I emailed him, but I was like, "Hey, this is Mitchell Cole. We met at Orlando Film Fest, and I'm about to do a feature and I want to consult with you and just make sure I'm setting myself up for success." So he's like, "Sure." So we did a Zoom meeting, and at the end of it, he's like, "Well, who do you have producing it right now?" And I was like, "Right now, I'm producing it." He's like, "No, you can't do that. You're directing. Directing and producing, that's not a good idea." He's like, "I'll produce it." I was like, "What?" And I guess like I went into that conversation best case scenario thinking, "Man, what if this guy just asked me to produce this film? That would be crazy, wouldn't it?" And then it happened, and I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, "What?" That's how that all came to fruition. And then he would come down to Florida. He's got like this Dodge Sprinter or whatever the vans are, and he's got it decked out to like live in basically. So he'll drive that thing all the way from New Jersey down to Florida and then like just camp out at like some campground or something. And he loves that, man. It's like he loves camping, he loves being out in the wild and stuff. So um I think he kind of used this as an excuse to come camp in Florida a little bit, but we made it worth the while.
Well, the big question is, what did your mom say when you called her up and said, "Hey, this guy wants to produce my film"?
Yeah, yeah. What did my mom say? I still don't think my mom can wrap her head around that because she's actually met Tom since then. We had a private screening and she's just like, "That's so cool. That guy likes the stuff you do, and he's like willing to work with you." I was like, "I know, mom."
I know it's cliche to say to keep at it and to keep networking.
Yeah.
I can't I can't ignore the fact that there is a little bit of luck involved, I would think, right? Because you happen to be sitting next to
100%.
Tom at this screening and
Yeah.
just happened to hear him scoff at this one little bit in a film set in New Jersey. So there's that, but there's this, there's a saying that says, luck favors the prepared, and you're there and you're making the most out of your opportunities. So me, I'm trying to find the lessons in everything that's happened to me. What have I learned from these experiences? What can I take with me to then apply to the next thing or to share with other people?
Yeah.
And there's something to be said about just that's what I love about film festivals, the chance to get out there and meet people and talk to people and promote yourself, support others. And then for you, man, it worked out great because here you are at a festival, you're making stuff, you happen to meet Tom. Tom likes your stuff. I mean, of course, I'll just say it again. I mean, why wouldn't Tom like the script to Against the Spread? Because the characters just really just jump off the screen. So yeah, I think just think it's a great thing, a great experience.
Yeah, I never thought luck favors the prepared. I really like that. I really like that. But it is luck. It is luck. I mean, you think like when we played Derelict in the festival circuit, we played a lot of festivals. Well, a lot being a relative term, but not a lot came from those. You know what I mean? There were a lot of festivals you went to.
Yeah.
watch films, people watch your film, you talked about it, and that was it. You never talk to those people again. You never hear from them, or what. You might see them on social media or something if you exchange that. But yeah, but I mean, I think that deep down, I think that's what everybody goes to a film festival for, right? It's like you're gonna meet that producer and get that film made.
Yeah. I remember I did a student film when I was in college, and it got into a festival in New York. And here I am, a recent college graduate from Alabama, getting into a New York Film Festival. I thought I'd made it. And
Yeah.
when you get up there, and I got up there, and like two people came to the screening. So you
That's
quickly,
the worst, man.
so yeah. But then you get to a point where you do this stuff over and over again, and you're thinking, there's a side of you that says, why keep doing this? Why bother anymore? And but to your experience, the pursuit, doing what you love, led to something great. Now, and I think for a lot of folks it could kind of paralyze them creatively, because they think that they're not good enough, or they think that no one's ever going to watch it. And I'll
No,
be honest, for a while, that's why I didn't write and post and share my own stories online. That's why I didn't start this podcast for a very long time, because I was thinking that, like, what do I have to offer to people? But then at some point you got to say, I'm just going to do it for me, and I'm going to do it because I love to do it. And if the audience is there, the audience will be there, and at least my mom will be there to listen. Right. So,
well, look, I one up you on that. Okay, we premiered Against the Spread, the big premiere. Not we had a good cast and crew screen, but this was the big premiere. This is when the world's gonna see it. This is the world premiere. There were 7 people in the crowd. 6 worked on the film. So everybody's watching the one guy that's not with the film. Like, okay, what did we make a good movie? Like, let's just watch this guy. So no,
I hope they were all sitting behind that guy, just kind of
no,
peering
like,
over his shoulder.
because me and Wesley were in the back and the 5 were like in front. They kept like kind of looking over at him. I know the guy had to have been like, why did I come into this? No, I should have went to the short block. What am I doing here? It hurt. It hurt for sure. But since then Magnolia was a great screening. With that, we've screened other places and those have been really good. So you can't let one incident like that get you down, man. You got to keep swinging, keep moving forward. Another thing, man, like you can't put that on yourself just because there's a poor turnout, man. There's so many factors with festival crowds, you know what I mean? There's so many factors. It might have rained that day and nobody even like wanted to get out of their house, and go to the festival, or like for example, like our screening, the premiere, there was a shooting in front of the theater the night before. So it's like, I think everybody was like scared to get out, there's just different factors, the festival has to promote the festival to get people there. You have to promote your film to get people to go there. I mean, there's just so many, and especially since COVID, a lot of things moved online. I think we're still coming back from that kind of with the festivals. Maybe not the bigger festivals, but a lot of these regional festivals for sure. And so yeah, yeah, you can't let a poor turnout at a festival dictate your success, because it doesn't.
So was there ever a time where Tom kind of had to pull you aside as producer, as a mentor, to just kind of say, hey, man, you really ought to think about this, or, I would really reconsider here, something like that?
Tom was really good. Like, I think he really let me direct. He told me he was going to say, I'm gonna keep the machine running. I'm gonna let you do your thing. I think there were only a handful of times, but now, and I really appreciate his honesty. He would like kind of pull me to the side and be like, hey, I'm not buying whatever it was that was in the scene. And most of the time it was like for instance, one time it was a dark scene and one of the characters had like a black eye and it just didn't quite, it looked good in person, but then on camera, it just didn't. And I don't really look at the monitor a lot when I'm directing. It's probably not a good habit, but I just kind of watch the performance. I'm used to standing like by the camera or behind the camera. I'm not really looking at the monitor though. And I remember he told me, he's, hey, that's, you got to do something. And all it took was more makeup and it was great. And what he did tell me was don't compromise. I would try to compromise just to kind of keep the flow going, just because that's, like you said, we only had 12 days to shoot it. And he would just, hey, slow down. Don't compromise. If I was like, okay, we can cut this shot because we can like just, I have an idea where we can just kind of like do a tilt or something and come up from the insert to the coverage. He'd be like, "Are you compromising? Are you compromising?" I'm like, "No, Tom, I'm not compromising. We're getting."
And you also learned not to show someone pumping their own gas set in New Jersey while working with Tom. That's the big takeaway. But no, I think that's very interesting. That's a great point about no compromising, because I know even on working on short films, knowing that a lot of people are relying on you, you've got to make your day, you've got to, hit certain things at certain times. Especially, I can see where that could become a real pressure cooker with maybe a producer over your shoulder saying, "Man, we're behind schedule. You got to like start picking it up." But yet here you have this producer in Tom who's really supporting your vision as director, which is excellent, because you're able to not combine shots just to get rid of something off your shot list or do something different just because it's quicker. You have that support from the producer to say, go ahead and do your thing."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, like I say,
Which
Tom
which got to be refreshing.
it is, man. It really is. And to look, Tom had never shot a film like this, but he told me he had always wanted to. He said, that's another reason he wanted to do the film. He said, this model, he's like, I think this is like the future. I think this is how films should be made and are going to be made. And he would look at the shot list. He just let me do the shot list. He's like, I trust you. I trust you. He kind of looked at it and he's like, it's a lot of shots for one day. And I was like, yeah, but I think by the time we do this setup, he's like, okay. But he did have me reorder them. He said, like, get your shots you have to have, get your shots you want, and then get your, initial slate of shots you can cut if we get behind. But we never got behind, man. We never got behind. And he was like really blown away at how quick we moved. We moved really quick on that film. It was interesting. You got this crew from the DIY world of everybody, kind of like everybody on the project probably at some point has made their own project, like directed their own project and done everything like crew wise themselves or with friends. So you got all this, and then you have this guy that went to NYU and has worked on these like multi-million-dollar budget films, and he's just kind of watching us run around like maniacs but we make days, and he's just like, wow, yep, this could work.
So the big question is, would you ever shoot a 100-page script in 12 days again?
Man, I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to. No. I would if I had to, but I really wouldn't want to, man. That was I'm proud of the film, but I do think if we had more time, obviously, like we could have, made some scenes better. Some scenes were definitely we just didn't have time to light it to the because our gaffer Tyler Horner and the DP Jack, they worked so well together, man. They were great, but obviously if they had an extra hour to light a scene or something, they would have done what they did, which was great, and made it even better. And I'm a visual guy, man. I think you said you are too, man. I'm just like,
yes,
I'm all about visuals and lighting, man. I love that stuff. I love it. So the more time and the better it looks, the more drawn I am to it.
Yeah, there's a great series of websites where you can just go and look at frames from different films through the years to get an idea of composition and color palettes and stuff. And I geek out over all that stuff. There's one called it's either Film Grab or Frame Grab.
Yes,
where I've used that before to kind of get an idea of kind of what I want the color to look like and kind of how I want my shots to be composed. There's another site called Shot on What, where you can kind of look and see, what film stocks were used or what digital cameras were used for films, and get an idea of kind of their cinematography. So I love looking at all that stuff. So yeah, so that's the first thing I'm looking at when I'm watching films is like, oh, that's an interesting choice of I wonder where they put this light, and oh, that's an interesting choice of camera placement,
Yeah.
And I try and tell people that I've worked with that, like I've had the opportunity to mentor some middle school and high school students, and I try to tell them, whenever you watch a film and somebody comes through a door, just something simple, walking in through a door, how are you going to shoot that? Where are you placing the camera? How is the actor coming through the door? And so it kind of opens their eyes like, oh yeah, every little thing you see on screen, there was a intentional choice behind that and a reason why.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, we had, like, our main films, like, we went to, and, but then there were some films you would never think of, you stumble on, you're like, "Oh, they got, like, a similar look," and then, like, maybe they don't have the right composition, but it's like the lighting techniques, that's what we need, that's what we need, and you kinda look like where you're at budget-wise and kinda look at the way they lit, a lot of lower budget films, you won't see many lights, which real quick, I do wanna talk about lighting, I tell people this all the time. It's so easy to make a film now in ways compared to what it used to be, which is a blessing and a curse. I think the curse is just like a saturated market, obviously. But the blessing is like, if you think about lighting, if you think about how far lighting has came in like the past 10 years, like how much lighting has changed. Like you go from these big tungsten lights, you got to carry around and have like all these stingers run across like the house to light. Now you can just pop a tube light up if you're in a close up. Like it's crazy. You can just pop a tube up, stick it to the wall, magnetic, and light with. Like 10 years, like 15 years ago, you'd have been like, "What are you talking about? You want to use a what?" Like, um,
yeah,
tube lights. I don't like them for everything, but in the indie world, they're fantastic. If you get behind, you can like lean on a tube light to kind of make up some time. I think.
yeah. I often think about all the great tech that's out there for young filmmakers now. That man, if I had had some of that stuff in high school, in college, it would just be. But at the same time, if I also had YouTube when I was in high school,
Oh my gosh.
I would be in a lot of trouble now because you make a lot of bad stuff when you're first trying to figure things out. And I know me, being the self promoter that I am, I would have uploaded that stuff to YouTube,
Yeah.
and I would just be cringing today knowing that some of that stuff that I made as a kid would be out there for the world to see.
Man, yeah. No, you got me wanting to go check my old YouTube pages and make sure.
So, thinking about specific stories where there was some logistical challenge you had to overcome, or some sort of creative constraint that you had to work through, or something where you can say, "Oh, I remember a time when this happened, and here's how I had to work through it."
Oh, dude, it happened on the feature, man. It happened on the feature. We had the football scene where we have two high school football teams playing, right? So we had contacted the school that we were working with, and you were using their field, and they'd clear us use their home jerseys. And then we had the away team at another school that was going to let us use their jerseys. Now we had planned all this because around the time that we were going to be shooting the film on Friday nights, the team we were using was going to have home games against two different teams with red helmets. So we said, okay, that's where we're going to get our B-roll. We're going to just match that red helmet. Both teams are going to have red helmets. We're going to match all our footage. Nobody will ever know. So we had a school with red helmets agree to let us use their helmets. The morning of, uh, Tom, or no, Tom wouldn't even make the phone call. He made Wesley call me. So Wesley called me. He's like, "Hey man, I just want to let you know we're not able to get the uniforms from the school. We texted him, called him this morning, wouldn't answer. He texted us back and said, 'Hey, I had a change of heart.'" And I'm like, "Oh wow, man! Like it'd been great for him to have it like the week before, even the day before, but on the morning of, we lost our away uniforms." And I thought about it, and I thought about it, I thought about it, and I was like, "Dude, I think we can still pull it off if we can get the just the white jerseys from the team we're already working with, because they've been really cooperative, really cool." So we dress everybody out, but everybody on the away team is wearing the same color, the same exact helmet as the home team. But I said, "Hey, if we shoot all of these shots super tight and we just really condense our shot list to what, we can stage and get right here, and then just get a lot of wide B-roll at the games, I think we can make it work." And it worked. It worked. I've shown football fanatics that scene. I said, "I just want you to watch it. Just pay attention to what's going on in the game. Tell me what you think." And at the end, I said, "Hey, did you notice the helmets?" They never noticed the helmets, man. We didn't get every shot that I had, imagined for that scene, but it was close enough that it worked.
Yeah, because I'm not going to spoil anything about the film because I definitely want people to go and see it. But you're right. you will always be surprised at what the audience doesn't pick up on. And for that football scene in particular, the important thing there is not the team's uniforms. You're focused on the QB. And I'm not going to spoil anything and say why you're focused on the QB, because it's an important part of the story, but you're focused on the QB and the actor was good because you're reading his face, right? And you're focused on your character and the uncle character, and what's because of the stakes that are involved. So it's you get the story right. You build up the world, you build up the characters. If the people are focused and care more about the characters, there's lots of things that they'll never notice.
I'll tell you another thing that happened to us on the same project, man. We had our crew filled out. I think a couple of weeks before everything started, we got the last positions filled. And then I kind of noticed our wardrobe person wasn't really responding a lot. And I had mentioned it to Tom, and Tom, he's, just be patient. She's doing her job. Don't step on her toes. And I didn't want her to feel like I was trying to overstep and just take control of what she was doing. I wanted her to have her own creative input. And I just got really worried. I said, "Oh man, we're like really close to shooting, and I haven't heard anything." And Tom said, "Okay. I'll reach out to her." So he reached out and said, "Hey, I just want to let you know, our director's getting a little nervous. He hasn't heard from you. Would you be able to reach out to him and just talk about what you've been doing?" And she's like, "I can't do this project. I'm sorry." It's just like, what? It actually might have been closer than a week, because I remember we basically had to move another person to that position, and that was crazy. And that actually carried over from pre-production to the first 2, maybe even 3 days of shooting before, the people that took that, because I think we ended up having to split that duty up between like 2 or 3 other people, and they finally got rolling around day 3. We kind of everything kind of started clicking, and we got everything down pat. But yeah, those first 2 days that was probably the biggest challenge on the first 2 days of filming. It's just like, we don't have a wardrobe person. She dropped out like a few days before. And anyways, but I think that speaks to our crew. They stepped up. I mean, honestly, if I didn't have them, I don't know what I would have done. I couldn't have done wardrobe. I'm directing and acting, you know what I mean? So, kudos to them for stepping up.
So how far behind were you after those first 3 days when you were kind of? You weren't. You were making your day.
Yeah, we were making our days, man. It was just like,
that's crazy.
My brain was jamming because I was like really having. I'm the only person that kind of like knew who was wearing what in what scene. So like, they would hand me clothes, and I'd have to think, is this right? And then I had to look it back. I'm like, okay, is that right? Is that right? Is that right? And I'm like, anyways, no, but we never got behind. We made it through. And I'll tell you where we actually, I don't know if I've ever said this publicly, but we actually did have a few continuity errors, and I think they would have gone unnoticed, but we had the opportunity to get those shots again after we wrapped. We shot this film on a really old camera, the Canon C300 Mark I, for all the camera nerds like me that know what that means. But Jeremy Saulnier shot Blue Ruin on it. And that's like one of my favorite films. It was a really strong reference film for this, so far as like technical and visual standpoint goes. And this camera just had like this character and this grit to it. So anyways, the DP, Jack McClellan, owned the Canon C300 Mark I, and I owned one. So we had 2, and I'm like, it just makes sense. Let's shoot on this camera. If anything happens, we got a backup. We can just throw a battery in and go. And then when's all said and done, if there's anything we need to get or can't get during principal, we can pick it up because we got Jack. Jack lives close. We've got the camera, and we got a few lights. We can make it work with the lights we have. You know what I mean? So that did allow us, like the whole car driving scene, toward the end with Brooke, where we had that poor man's car rig, like the hood shot. We wouldn't have been able to get that during principal, I don't think. So that was where that day where we could get the pickups and all that. We would have never been able to done that had we rented our equipment, right?
Yeah, no, and I think, man, I think that's an excellent lesson, because maybe somebody is thinking about getting started and they don't feel like they have the right gear. You know, I'm on subreddits all the time for cinematography, for filmmaking, and people are always asking, "What camera should I buy? I don't have this camera. What can I do?" And I've got a budget of $2,000. What can I get? And most of the time, the advice is you've got a phone in your pocket, you know, that produces great images. You know, start there. Don't let that be a hindrance to you. You know, don't let that be an excuse to not start, to not make something. I mean, good grief, the only thing I had at the time when I was a kid was a Sony VHS camcorder. So I'm just shooting
Right.
stuff to
Yeah.
VHS tape, and I'm hooking two VCRs together,
You can
and
edit.
I'm to edit. You know, I'm hitting record on one on a blank tape, hitting play on the other one, and you know, you just if you find a way to make it happen, and I think that's all that we're doing. You know, is we're putting the pieces of the puzzle together, and we're finding a way. When the trees fall in front of you, you got to figure out a way around them.
Well, because check this out, man. So I know some really, really talented filmmakers who haven't gotten a project made because they want to shoot it on an Arri Alexa, and they want this big budget, and they need all this. And that's great, man. They're going to make a really good project when they get it, but the problem is it kind of gets into that world of like waiting. You do a lot of waiting, and before you know it, you've waited 5 years, 10 years, you know what I mean? And before you know it, maybe you don't make a project at all. And so, yeah, I consider myself lucky to come from that world of DIY where you just like you come up with an idea and you don't wait, you just figure it out. You know what I mean? It's okay. We already know we're not going to get an Arri Alexa. So what can we do? But that can help you in a way, right? Like I talk about the C300 Mark One. It only
Right.
shoots 1080. It doesn't even shoot 4K, but there's a character to that camera and it fit the story. So then it kind of gets you into that where you start thinking about things like that, like learning how to make your look serve your story. And that's very important. You know what I mean? Like that's the most important thing. Every aspect of your film should be to serve the story.
Yeah. You mentioned the constraints that you had with the football uniforms, but does anything else pop to mind when it comes to Against the Spread specifically as it pertains to limitations you guys had with whether it be crew, gear, budget, things where you had to kind of make do or make something kind of from nothing with this scrappy can do attitude?
Well, yeah, okay. So just from the ground up, man, like we didn't have a lot of money to shoot this film with. I took out a loan to supplement what we didn't have when it came to the end of financing. So I knew we didn't have money to rent nothing, man. So the guy I work for, the blue collar, world has a covered trailer that we use on jobs to pull equipment. Well, that was our gear. That was our gear truck. That's the grip truck. So I'm driving my SUV,
Yeah.
pulling this covered trailer around full of lights and diffusion and our dolly, which was made out of like a inch and a half PVC and a piece of plywood with a Harbor Freight stool mounted to the top and skateboard wheels on it. And it worked great, man. We had some really great dolly shots in that film. And we didn't have to rent a dolly. We made that one in my pole barn for like $60.
How was that process for you moving from the world of shorts to now directing a feature? And not only directing, but being the writer and an actor in the feature.
I come from the world of like me and Wesley are our only crew. We might have two other guys helping us one day, and then maybe the next day we're on our own. And then I'll walk into this trailer of like 15 people walking around, and everybody is getting ready for a shot for a film that I imagine in my head that's now going to be brought alive. It was surreal, man. It does take getting used to. Tom prepared me to work with a crew. He said, "Hey, you're a director. You're not worried about moving light stands and doing all this, that, and the third. That's the crew's job." So it was a learning experience, learning how to work like that, learning how to work with a crew, with a short, at least the ones that we've never spent a lot of money on a short. It's like, okay, well, if we get into it and then everything falls apart and we don't finish, it's fine. But now it's like, okay, now this is big stakes for us. This is serious. This is serious money for us. If we don't finish this, like we're gonna have people mad at us, including our credit union.
That's right. Well, I was going to say, I hope that the loan you took out is you went a different path than Brooke does in the film when it comes to securing your film financing, because that might not end well for you.
Yeah, that shallow guy, he wouldn't lend me any money, dude.
Give me a rundown of Against the Spread. Give me the plot synopsis and tell me what it's all about.
Against the Spread is a Southern fried retelling of The Merchant of Venice by William Shakespeare. It's set in modern day Florida Panhandle. It's about two cousins and an uncle that live in a trailer together. And one of them has an online girlfriend he wants to impress, so he wants to get a nose job. So he goes to a ruthless loan shark in the area and takes out a loan to pay for said nose job. And then the rest of the film, you get to watch these nimwits try to pay Shiloh, the loan shark, back.
It's great because it's just one bad decision after another where you, as an audience member, are just almost groaning in your seat as you're watching, thinking, don't do that. What are you doing? The hole's getting deeper. And I just find that such an interesting premise, an unusual reason to go and get a loan is for a nose job to impress a girl.
Oh, and his online girlfriend.
That's
never
such
met.
yes, it's such a funny. It's such an absurd setup to me that you can't help but go along with it because it is so absurd.
So, like, when I first decided I wanted to make a feature, I wasn't like really confident in my writing. So I was like, if I can find a story like in the public domain or something, I can basically adapt to the Panhandle and what I know and make authentic. I said it'd be great. So like I was okay. I don't even know like public domain. I'm like, okay, who are some really, really old writers? And I was like, oh, that Shakespeare guy, I think he's pretty good. So I found his works, and it's like, dude, I didn't read. I mean, I read like I think they made us read like 3 or 4 when I was in school, or like Macbeth and Romeo and Juliet. But I never heard of The Merchant of Venice. And when I read it, and it's like, I mean, that's what happens in the original play is like this guy Bassanio, who is Brooke in our film, like wants to impress this woman whose dad just died and she's going to get all his money. So it's just like, how shallow do you got to be? You know what I mean? And I was like, this is kind of absurd, but I was like, this could work, man. This could, especially like with these morons in the South, like that are in this film. It's like, this could work.
You just said that you weren't really too confident in your own writing skills. So was there someone that you trusted, like Wesley or somebody in your inner circle there, to kind of help you polish the script, punch it up, do some rewrites, anything like that?
Well, yeah. So Wesley obviously read like one of the earlier drafts, I think, and gave me his notes. But then Tom, came in. He gave me, once he came on board, he gave me his notes. But Tom has this Bill Pace that he works and writes with, and he's a screenwriting professor. That's like what he does, and he has some really good notes. Once we sent the script to him and he read it, he helped out a lot and had some really good feedback.
Now, it's such a smart move, I think, to go into the public domain and find something that you can adapt. That's a great way to go, especially like you said, if you aren't 100% confident in your own abilities, like give yourself a good starting point, something to kind of a launching pad, but then kind of putting your own personal touches onto it. It's like, Stephen King did that, and I don't know if he's still doing it, but you could actually purchase rights to do a Stephen King short story for $1.
What?
And yeah. Did you find, because I know that there's an ongoing debate out there. Should I go to a film festival? Should I not go to film festivals? Are they worth it? Should I just put my stuff up on YouTube and build an audience that way? For you guys specifically, in your experiences with Against the Spread, how would you answer that question?
So our executive producer, Nick Stagliano, has been kind of our guy from the start. He came on board not long after we finished. I can't remember if we had the first cut done. Yeah, I think he saw the first cut of the film. Him and Tom go way back. They went to NYU together. They've worked on projects together. But I think Nick's been shopping this thing around for a while, and I think we would have gotten it without the festival circuit. But I do think, even with him going to these meetings and trying to get us distribution, I do think being able to like show, hey, we are trying to do everything that we can by going to these festivals. I do think that added some credibility to the film.
So you already mentioned the next script you're working on right now. Is this the Tell me about that. Is this the next feature that you're hoping to direct?
So yeah, this film it's going to be a horror film. So I've never done a horror film, short or feature. And our DP Jack, he had a really good concept, and he's been working on it for like a year and a half. And I said, Jack, can I please have this This is a great concept, and I think it would be perfect for if I ever did a horror film. It would be this. And he was kind enough to agree to let me take a stab at the screenplay. And yeah, that's what's next. I love it. I love it. I think it's a great concept.
Mitchell, you've been so great with your time, and this has just been a great conversation, and I could probably sit and chat with you for a few more hours about all of this stuff. But before we wrap up, I did want to give you the chance to let people know where they can keep up with what you're working on and where they can keep up with Against the Spread if they want to follow that film.
Yeah, so Instagram is the spot. So if you want to follow me, I am at Wake Up Mr. Cole, no underscores or spaces. And then if you want to keep up with the film, it's at Against the Spread Film, no spaces, no underscores. So
great. So again, check out Against the Spread. You're going to love this film. I had a great time with it. Mitchell, I've had an awesome time getting the chance to speak to you. It's so great to see you again after a few months and reconnect with you after the Magnolia Film Festival.
Likewise, man. Yeah, you get a lot of false promises from people. You told me you were going to put me on the podcast, and here I am, man. So thank you.
Yes. Promise made, promise delivered. I think what I really liked about listening to Mitchell talk about his experiences was the idea of not compromising and surrounding yourself with incredibly supportive people. And I just really was impressed with their film, was impressed with Mitchell in general as a talented young actor, writer, and director. And, I hope that you'll check out Against the Spread. You can check it out at jackrabbitmedia.com. And of course, like Mitchell said, wherever you get your physical media, look for it on Amazon as well. As always, you can connect with me at linktree.com/ClintTill. Subscribe to this podcast wherever you get podcasts. Be sure to like and leave a review. That'll help other people find the show. Share it with others. You can subscribe to my newsletter at clinttill.substack.com. That's also where this podcast is hosted. And that's it for this month's episode. You've been listening to Persistence of Vision.